Rabbit Cheshire Sauce with Wild Mushrooms by Maddie Anderson. In Module 3, we read a piece from French Women for All Seasons. In this reading, the recipe rabbit with grapes and wild mushrooms was provided. This interested me, so I turned to the internet to look for a more detailed recipe. On a blog post from the Forager Chef, I found a recipe for rabbit Cheshire sauce with wild mushrooms. Before making the dish, I did some research on the history of the meal. Cheshire sauce, also called hunter sauce, is a brown sauce that's used in French cuisine. It's called hunter sauce because it can be paired with a variety of hunted meats, like venison, fowl, rabbit, or game meat. I chose rabbit to challenge myself and try something new with this project. The wild mushrooms are added because traditionally, hunters would gather the mushrooms after they're done hunting the meat. Philip de Norway is credited with inventing the Cheshire sauce. He was born in 1549 and he lived in what is now called Val d'Oise. Once I decided that rabbit was what I wanted to cook, I had to find the rabbit meat, and this was harder than expected. It took a lot of calling around until I could find a place that sold rabbit meat locally. Something I noticed, and only because of prior readings from this class, is how uncomfortable I felt buying the meat. I've learned that in French cooking they respect the meat and the animal, so they're not fazed by being able to identify what animal the meat came from, and that's something I'm not used to. I only had the option to buy the whole rabbit, everything but the tail. And being able to recognize what animal it came from was something I couldn't really stomach and would come to be a problem later on in cooking. 1 large or medium rabbit, all-purpose flour, salt and pepper, 1 teaspoon of chopped thyme, 1 cup of a white dry wine, 1 cup of tomato juice, 1 cup of any stock. I decided to use chicken, 2 ounces of bacon cut into half-inch pieces, half a cup of diced onions. The next ingredient is 8 to 16 ounces of wild mushrooms, and unfortunately I can't find those, so I went to the store and bought some. 1 tablespoon of unsalted butter, 1 tablespoon of finely sliced garlic. The instructions for cooking the rabbit said to chop the meat into 3 to 4 inch pieces. When trying to cut through the bones, I found it very hard, so I had to call in the help of my sous chef to do it. Something about cutting this meat made me very uncomfortable because, again, I could see it was once a rabbit, and I don't mind eating rabbit, but I'm also not comfortable being able to look at it as what it once was. The next step is to season the meat with salt and pepper liberally. This took some time because there were so many slices of meat. Next, I prepared the flour for dredging. I am not an experienced chef, so this was a new experience for me in cooking, but it wasn't that hard. The meat, now dredged and seasoned, waits as I prepare the cast iron. I use unsalted butter as my lard and set the stove to medium-high. I waited till the pan was hot and ready, and then I started adding the rabbit. At first it seemed like the cooking was going really slow, but then it took off. I moved them around to make sure all the sides were getting equally cooked. I added more butter as the instructions suggested. At the halfway point, I removed the pan and poured out as much lard as I could. I then added the bacon to be cooked along with the rabbit meat. Then I added the garlic and onions and cooked it until it was lightly brown, toasty, and smelled good. This is also when I added the mushrooms. After 10 minutes of everything else cooking, I added the tomato juice, the wine, and the stock, just before transferring it all to the oven. In the oven, the cast iron will sit for 45 minutes at 325 degrees. After what felt like forever, I was able to pull the pan out of the oven and see what I had made. The first step now is to remove the rabbit meat from the pan and put it somewhere where it can stay warm until serving time. I used a large pot because I wasn't sure how much space I would need. Now I will move the pot of meat to the side until it is serving time. The next step is an optional one. I have to check my sauce and see if it's as thick as I want it to be, and if not, I have to correct that. I correct it by adding butter and whisking it in with the rest of the sauce. Sometimes if there's so much evaporation in the oven, this step isn't needed. I will also check for taste. If I think that there needs to be more salt, which I did, I can add that now. I also add the thyme. Now that the dish is complete, I can try some. I enjoyed the preparation and cooking of this dish, but I'm a little nervous to try it. I've never had this dish, anything like it, or even rabbit before, so I don't know what to expect when tasting it. The rabbit meat is chewier than I expected, but overall, I give myself 9 out of 10 for this recipe. I would like to think I would make it again, but when I was eating it, I couldn't stop thinking about what the rabbit looked like before, and that just gave me a queasy feeling, so I couldn't make it for myself again. But if somebody else prepared it, I think I would enjoy it.